The auction block stood like a gallows in Bitter Creek's dusty town square. Thomas Blackwood watched from the shadow of the general store's awning, his weathered hat pulled low. He hadn't planned to attend, had only come to town for supplies, but the growing crowd drew him like a moth to flame. Sheriff Mills noticed him and nodded. "Blackwood, rare sight you in town." "Supplies," Blackwood muttered, not meeting the lawman's eyes. The auctioneer, portly man, with too much cologne, climbed onto the wooden platform. The crowd quieted as he unfurled a list. "Ladies and gentlemen of Bitter Creek, we have quite the selection today. Farm equipment from the late Jenkins estate, 3 prime workhorses from the Sutton place, and," he paused dramatically, "several labor contracts acquired through our associates in San Francisco." Blackwood stiffened. Labor contracts. A pretty name for indentured servitude. Or worse. The first items went quickly. Then they brought her out. She couldn't have been more than 20. Small-framed and terrified. Her black hair was pulled back severely, highlighting the angular lines of her face. Her hands, bound loosely with rope, trembled slightly. "Next we have a labor contract for 1 female Chinese worker," the auctioneer announced. "Good for domestic work, cooking, cleaning. Contract runs 5 years. Starting bid $3. A ripple of murmurs ran through the crowd. Blackwood recognized Emmett Hargrove, who owned the largest cattle operation in the county, eyeing the girl with cold calculation. $3, called a voice from the back. $3.50, countered Hargrove without hesitation. The bidding continued. $5. $6. The girl kept her head down, but Blackwood could see her shoulders tensing with each bid. $10, called Hargrove, finally, silencing the others. $10 for this fine labor contract. Going once, going $3, Blackwood said, his voice cutting through the square like a knife. The crowd turned, some gasping when they recognized him. The auctioneer blinked. "Sir, the current bid is $10. $3, Blackwood repeated, stepping forward. "That's what you asked at the start. That's what I'm offering." "That's not how an auction works." "Blackwood," Hargrove sneered. Blackwood ignored him. $3 to cancel the contract entirely. Now the crowd was truly stunned. The auctioneer sputtered. "Sir, this is a legal labor contract." "Show me the paper," Blackwood demanded, climbing the steps to the platform. He was not a tall man, but decades of hard work had left him corded with lean muscle. His sun-darkened face was creased with lines etched by wind and worry, and a jagged scar ran from his left temple to his jaw, a souvenir from his bounty hunting days. The auctioneer handed over a document. Blackwood scanned it, aware of the girl watching him now, her dark eyes wary but intent. "This says the contract can be bought out for a reasonable sum," Blackwood noted. "I'm offering $3. $15, Hargrove called out suddenly. "This isn't right," Blackwood said simply. "We all know it." Sheriff Mills stepped forward. "Blackwood, you're disrupting a legal proceeding." "Legal don't make it right," Blackwood replied. He reached into his pocket and pulled out 3 silver dollars, placing them deliberately on the auctioneer's table. Then he added a 4th, for the paperwork. $20, Hargrove said, his face reddening. Blackwood sighed heavily. He reached into his boot and pulled out a small leather pouch. 1 ounce of gold dust, he said quietly, placing the pouch beside the silver dollars, worth about $25. "That's everything I have." The auctioneer's eyes widened. "Sold," he declared hastily. Hargrove spat in the dirt. "You'll regret this, old man." Blackwood turned to the girl, who was staring at him with an unreadable expression. Gently, he untied the rope from her wrists. "You're free," he said quietly. "Contract's done." She rubbed her wrists. "Free?" she asked, her English halting but clear. "Yes," Blackwood confirmed. "Wait," she called after him. "Where I go now?" The question stopped him. He hadn't thought that far ahead. "You can come with me," he offered awkwardly. "I have a ranch. It's not much, but there's work if you want it." "Paid work," he emphasized. "Or I can give you money for the stagecoach east." She studied him. "I come." she said finally. I work. My name Mei Lin, she said as they reached the wagon. Thomas Blackwood, he replied, helping her onto the seat. Most just call me Blackwood. As they drove out of town, Blackwood could feel the weight of eyes on his back, knew the whispers had already begun. He'd lived 30 years in this territory without causing a stir. Now with one impulsive act, he'd upended that careful existence. The Blackwood Ranch sat in a shallow valley, sheltered from the worst of the prairie winds by low, rocky hills. A modest two-room cabin stood beside a small barn and corral. A creek, hardly more than a trickle in the summer heat, wound its way past the structures. This is it, he said unnecessarily, as they pulled up to the cabin. Mei Lin took in the surroundings with careful attention. Water, she noted, pointing to the creek. Good. Blackwood helped her down from the wagon. Cabin's there. So did you and take the bedroom?
Sleep in the main room.
She frowned. Your house. You sleep in bedroom. Not proper, Blackwood said firmly. You take the bed. Her expression suggested she might argue, but instead she gave a small nod. For now. The meal was simple but better than anything Blackwood had made for himself in years. They ate in silence. The only sounds the scrape of forks against tin plates and the distant lowing of cattle. Tomorrow, Mei Lin said finally. Breaking the silence, I clean, house need cleaning. Blackwood grunted. Do what you want. I'll be with the cattle. How long I stay? She asked directly, her dark eyes meeting his. The question caught him off guard. Long as you want, I suppose, until you figure out where you're headed next. You not want, wife? She asked hesitantly. Blackwood nearly choked on his coffee. No, he said firmly. Nothing like that. You work, I pay, that's all. Relief visibly washed over her face. Good. I not want husband. Despite himself, Blackwood almost smiled. Then we understand each other. The days settled into a routine. Blackwood rose before dawn, tended the horses, and rode out to check the cattle. Mei Lin kept the cabin, washed clothes in the creek, and prepared meals. They spoke little, existing in parallel rather than together. But Blackwood noticed things. How she'd planted vegetables beside the cabin. How she'd mended his shirts without being asked. How she hummed softly to herself when she thought he couldn't hear. A week passed. Then two. The summer heat intensified. The creek shrank to a trickle, and the cattle grew restless. On the 15th day, Blackwood returned to find Mei Lin standing in the doorway, her expression tense. Men come, she said without preamble. 3 men on horses. They look, then go. Blackwood's hand moved instinctively to the knife at his belt. Did they say anything to you? She shook her head. I hide inside. They circle house, look at creek, then ride away. Which direction? There, she pointed north, toward Hargrove's land. Blackwood nodded grimly. Hargrove's men, probably just curious, but he didn't believe that. And from Mei Lin's expression, neither did she. That night, he cleaned his rifle and pistol. When he finished, he found Mei Lin watching him from the bedroom doorway. You think they come back, she said. Not a question. Maybe, Blackwood admitted. Hargrove doesn't like being crossed. She nodded thoughtfully. In China, my father was farmer. Men come take our land, take everything. Her eyes grew distant. Father fight, they kill him. Blackwood set down his rifle. I'm sorry. Mother, send me away. Say America better. A bitter smile crossed her face. Men the same everywhere. Not all men, Blackwood said quietly. Mei Lin studied him. No, she agreed finally. Not all. The next morning Blackwood didn't ride out. Instead, he showed Mei Lin how to use the rifle. It's heavy, he warned, helping her position it against her shoulder. I strong enough, she replied, her jaw set determinedly. They practiced with cans set on fence posts. Mei Lin learned quickly, her aim surprisingly good after a few attempts. The moment was broken by the distant sound of hoofbeats. 3 riders approached from the east, not from Hargrove's direction, but from town. Get inside, he told Mei Lin. Stay there until I call you. As the riders drew closer, He recognized Sheriff Mills flanked by two men he didn't know. One wore a suit, despite the heat. The other, the rough clothes of a ranch hand. "Blackwood," Mills called as they reined in. "Got a moment? This here's Mr. Parker from the territorial office." He indicated the suited man. "And Jim Wilkes works for the railroad company." Parker stepped forward, mopping his brow with a handkerchief. "Mr. Blackwood, we've received complaints about your, living arrangement with a Chinese national." "My living arrangement is my business," Blackwood said coldly. "Ordinarily, yes," Parker agreed. "But there are concerns about the legality of the situation. The Chinese Exclusion Act." "She's legally in the country," Blackwood interrupted. "Had papers at the auction." "Yes." "Well, about that auction," Parker continued. "Mr. Hargrove has filed a formal complaint alleging irregularities in the proceedings." Sheriff Mills sighed. "Look, Blackwood, nobody's accusing you of anything. We just need to see the girl, make sure everything's proper." "Her name is Mei Lin," Blackwood said. "And she's not a girl. She's a woman grown." "Fine," Mills conceded. "We need to speak with Miss Mei Lin." Blackwood hesitated, then called over his shoulder. "Mei Lin, come out here." Mei Lin emerged. She'd changed into her best blouse, one she'd made from flour sacking, but embroidered with careful stitches. Parker stepped forward. "Miss, I need to verify your status in this territory. Are you here of your own free will?" Mei Lin glanced at Blackwood, then back to Parker. "Yes," she said clearly. "I work for Mr. Blackwood. He pay fair. And the nature of your employment?" Parker pressed. Mei Lin's eyes flashed. "I cook, clean, mend clothes. What you think I do?" The challenge in her voice was unmistakable. Parker examined her papers. "This seems to be in order," he admitted reluctantly. The third man, Wilkes, stepped forward. "The railroad company has an interest in this matter. We contracted for Chinese laborers through our San Francisco office. This woman was part of that arrangement." "Your arrangement was with the labor contractor," Blackwood pointed out. "That's done now." Wilkes smiled thinly. "Perhaps, but it seems a waste for one woman to keep house for a single rancher when we have entire work crews who need cooks and laundresses, or we'd be willing to compensate you." "Of course." Blackwood's expression hardened. "She's not for sale. Everyone has a price, Mr. Blackwood." "Not me," Blackwood said flatly. "And not her. She's free to go wherever she wants. She chooses to stay here." After the men rode away, Mei Lin turned to Blackwood. "They come back." "Probably," he agreed, "but not today." That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the prairie in shades of gold and crimson, Mei Lin asked, "Why you help me at auction?" Blackwood considered the question. Watching a hawk circle lazily in the distance seemed the right thing to do, he said finally. "Many people see wrong things. Few do something." He couldn't argue with that. "I've seen enough wrong in my life. Done enough wrong too." "What wrong you do?" she asked, her directness catching him off guard. Blackwood was silent for a long moment. "I was a bounty hunter, years back. Tracked men for money. Bad men? Some were. Some just broke laws that needed breaking." He rubbed the scar along his jaw, absently. "Didn't always check too close before I brought them in." Mei Lin nodded thoughtfully. "You regret?" "Every day," he admitted. Summer gave way to autumn. The prairie grasses turned golden, then brown. The days grew shorter, the nights colder. Blackwood rode into town twice for supplies, returning with fabric for Mei Lin to make winter clothes, books to help her English, and seeds for next spring's planting. The second trip yielded troubling news. Hargrove had been buying up small ranches throughout the county, expanding his already considerable holdings. Water was the issue. A drought had gripped the territory for months, and Hargrove controlled most of the reliable water sources. "Only a matter of time before he comes for your creek," the storekeeper warned Blackwood. "Small as it is, it's one of the few that hasn't dried up completely." When he shared the news with Mei Lin that evening, she received it with characteristic pragmatism. "We prepare," she said simply, already calculating what would be needed. How many men Hargrove have? Dozen or so, Blackwood replied. Too many to fight. Then we not fight, we be smarter. Over the following weeks, they worked together to secure the ranch. Blackwood repaired fences, reinforced the barn, and moved the cattle closer to the cabin, where they could be better protected. Mei Lin preserved food, stored water, and continued improving her shooting. They spoke more now, sharing stories in the evenings. Mei Lin told him of her village in China, of her journey across the ocean, of the labor camp where she'd spent her first year in America. Blackwood, in turn, shared tales of his bounty hunting days, of the loneliness that had driven him to this isolated ranch, of his hopes to someday find peace. You have peace now, Mei Lin observed one evening. Here on this land. Blackwood considered this. Maybe he allowed, more than before anyway. She smiled at that. Her smiles came more frequently now. You good man, Thomas Blackwood, even if you not think so. The first snow fell in early November, dusting the prairie in white. Mei Lin watched it through the cabin window with childlike wonder. Beautiful, she breathed, her hand pressed against the glass. The confrontation they'd been expecting came 3 days later. Blackwood was checking the cattle when he spotted riders approaching. 6 men, Hargrove in the lead. He rode back to the cabin quickly. Hargrove's coming. 6 men with him. Mei Lin nodded calmly. I ready. She had the rifle in her hands before he could respond. No shooting unless there's no choice, Blackwood warned. Let me talk to them first. They positioned themselves on the porch. Blackwood standing, Mei Lin seated in the rocking chair with the rifle across her lap. The riders approached slowly, spreading out as they neared the cabin. Afternoon. Blackwood. Hargrove called, reining in his horse. He was a big man, with a florid face and cold eyes. Quite the domestic scene you've got here. State your business, Hargrove, Blackwood replied evenly. Hargrove smiled without warmth. Just being neighborly. Heard you might be struggling with this drought. Thought I'd make you an offer for your place. Not for sale. Everything's for sale, old man. Just a matter of finding the right price. Hargrove's gaze shifted to Mei Lin. Though I see you found yourself some companionship. Didn't think you had it in you. Blackwood felt rather than saw Mei Lin tense beside him. My arrangement with Miss Mei Lin isn't your concern, he said coldly. Neither is my ranch. Hargrove chuckled. Miss Mei Lin, is it? Well, pardon my manners. He tipped his hat mockingly. Thing is, Blackwood, this drought's hitting everyone hard. I've got 500 head of cattle needing water. Your creek's one of the few still running. Barely enough for my 30 head. Blackwood pointed out. Won't help your 500 much. Oh, I don't know about that. With the right improvements, that spring in the hills could be developed. Engineers from the railroad company say it's got potential. So that was it. They'd surveyed his land already, probably with Wilkes from the railroad company. Not interested, Blackwood said firmly. Now ride on out of here. Hargrove's expression hardened. Don't be a fool, Blackwood. I'm offering fair market value, $500 for the whole spread. It's worth 3 times that. And you know it. Maybe before the drought. Now. Hargrove shrugged. Take the offer while it's on the table. Won't get better. The answer's no, Blackwood said. This is my home. Hargrove's eyes narrowed. For now, he said quietly. Then louder. Think about it, Blackwood. I'll be back in a week for your answer. He turned his horse, then paused. Oh, and you might want to keep a close eye on those cattle of yours. Wool's been bad this year. That night, Blackwood didn't sleep. He sat by the window, rifle across his knees, watching the moonlit prairie. Around midnight, he spotted movement near the cattle pen. 2 figures moving stealthily through the shadows. He slipped outside, moving silently, despite his years. The cold air bit at his face as he circled behind the barn, approaching the intruders from downwind. They were attempting to open the cattle pen, planning to scatter the herd. Blackwood raised his rifle and fired a shot into the air. The men whirled, reaching for their guns. Next one won't be a warning, Blackwood called, his voice carrying in the still night. The men hesitated, then broke into a run, heading for horses tethered beyond the creek. Blackwood let them go. Killing Hargrove's men would only escalate the situation beyond repair. When he returned to the cabin, Mei Lin was waiting, a shawl wrapped around her shoulders against the cold. "They run away?" she asked. "For now," Blackwood confirmed, "but they'll be back, and in greater numbers." Mei Lin nodded thoughtfully. "We need help. No one will stand against Hargrove," Blackwood said bitterly. "He owns half the county. Not everyone afraid," she insisted. "Good people in town. I see when we go for supplies." The next day, they took shifts watching for intruders. None came, but the tension remained. As evening fell, Blackwood made a decision. "Tomorrow I'll ride into town," he told Mei Lin. "Talk to some people." She nodded approvingly. "Good. I go too." "No," he said quickly. "Too dangerous. You stay here, keep watch." "More dangerous alone," she countered. "I go with you." That night, as he sat by the fire cleaning his pistol, Mei Lin joined him. She'd been unusually quiet since dinner. "If Hargrove take ranch," she said finally, "where you go?" The question caught him off guard. "Don't know," he admitted. "Never thought about it." "You fight for this place. Must mean something to you." Blackwood set down the pistol. "Considering, built it myself," he said slowly. "Every fence post, every plank in the floor. Thought I'd die here someday. Peaceful death." She nodded. "Good wish. What about you?" he asked. "Where would you go?" Mei Lin looked into the fire. "No place for Chinese woman alone," she said simply. "Maybe back to California. Many Chinese there." The thought of Mei Lin leaving created an unexpected hollowness in Blackwood's chest. These past months, he'd grown accustomed to her presence, her quiet strength, her pragmatic wisdom, her rare but transformative smiles. "You could stay," he found himself saying. "Whatever happens, we could find another place." She studied him, her expression unreadable in the firelight. "We?" she asked softly. Blackwood felt heat rise in his face that had nothing to do with the fire. "If you wanted," he said awkwardly, "wouldn't have to be anything improper. Just together, as we are now." A small smile curved her lips. "As we are now," she repeated. "I think about it." The next morning dawned clear and cold. They set out for town early, leaving the cattle secured in the barn with enough feed for the day. Bitter Creek was quiet when they arrived. Blackwood tied their horses outside the general store. Inside, Jenkins, the storekeeper, greeted him with surprise. "Blackwood," Jenkins said, "twice in 1 month. Must be a record." "Need to talk, Sam," Blackwood said, without preamble, "about Hargrove." Jenkins' expression grew serious. "Let's go to the back," he suggested, leading Blackwood to a small office behind the store. "Hargrove's been in here bragging that he's buying your place," he said. "Says it's a done deal." "It's not," Blackwood replied grimly, "and won't be. But he's pushing hard. Sent men to scatter my cattle last night." Jenkins nodded grimly. "Not surprised, did the same to Hollister last month. Old man had a heart attack, trying to round up his herd. Hargrove bought the place from his widow for a pittance." "How many others?"
Blackwood asked.
"This year, 5 ranches, all small operations like yours. All had water sources. He's consolidating the watershed." Blackwood realized. If he controls all the water, he controls the county. Jenkins finished. "Already has the territorial office in his pocket. Railroad company, too." "What about the sheriff?" Jenkins snorted. "Hull. Mills. He does whatever the highest bidder wants. Right now that's Hargrove. Anyone standing against him?" "Few of us trying," Jenkins admitted. "Formed a small association of independent ranchers and merchants. Not much power yet, but we're growing. I need allies, Sam." Blackwood said bluntly. "Hargrove's given me a week to sell. After that, he'll take it by force." Jenkins nodded. "I can introduce you to the association. Meeting tonight at the church." When Blackwood emerged from the store, Mei Lin was nowhere to be seen. Alarmed, he scanned the street. He spotted her across the way, speaking with a Chinese man outside the laundry. As he approached, Maylin turned to him with an animated expression he'd never seen before. "Thomas," she said, using his first name for the first time. "This is Mr. Wu. He worked for Chinese merchants in San Francisco." The elderly man beside her bowed slightly. He wore Western clothes, but his long queue marked him as a traditionalist. "Mr. Blackwood," he said in accented but precise English. "Miss Maylin tells me you are a man of honor." Blackwood shifted uncomfortably at the praise. "Just did what seemed right." Wu studied him with shrewd eyes. "Such men are rare on the frontier, even rarer when it comes to dealings with my people." He gestured toward the laundry. "Please, join us for tea. We have much to discuss." The laundry's back room was small but meticulously arranged. 3 other Chinese men were already seated at a round table. "My associates," Wu explained, introducing each man: Liang, who ran the laundry; Chen, a cook at the hotel; and Zhang, who Wu described only as an investor with interests in the territory. "Hargrove has been squeezing Chinese businesses as well," Wu explained, "raising rents, restricting access to water, hiring men to intimidate customers." "Why haven't you gone to the sheriff?" Blackwood asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Wu smiled thinly. "Sheriff Mills suggests we are imagining these problems, or causing them ourselves," added Liang bitterly. Blackwood nodded grimly. "Jenkins mentioned a group of independent ranchers and merchants organizing against Hargrove, meeting tonight at the church." "We know of this group," Wu confirmed, "but they have not invited us to join." "I'll make sure you're welcome," Blackwood promised. John leaned forward. "Mr. Blackwood, our community has resources, not just here but connections to San Francisco, even Chicago. We cannot fight openly. The law does not favor us, but we can provide other assistance. Information, supplies, perhaps financial backing for those willing to stand against Hargrove publicly." "I appreciate the offer," Blackwood said, "but I fight my own battles." "As did Hollister," Wu observed quietly, "and Peterson, and the Mackenzie brothers, all gone now." The words hung in the air, their truth undeniable. Blackwood looked at Maylin, saw the concern in her eyes. "I'll consider it," he conceded, "after tonight's meeting." As they left the laundry, Maylin tucked her hand into the crook of Blackwood's arm. "Another first. They respect you," she said. "Will help if you let them." "Dangerous allies," Blackwood murmured, though he didn't pull away from her touch. "All allies dangerous in war," she replied simply, "but better than fighting alone." The church was Bitter Creek's oldest building, a simple wooden structure with a modest steeple. As Blackwood approached, he noted men posted as lookouts, a sensible precaution. One of them, a weather-beaten rancher named Dobson, stopped them at the door. "She can't come in," he said, nodding toward Maylin. "She's with me," Blackwood said firmly. "No women," Dobson insisted, "and certainly no Chinese." Blackwood's hand moved instinctively toward his pistol, but Maylin placed a restraining hand on his arm. "I wait outside," she said calmly. "Is fine." "No, it's not fine," Blackwood argued. "These men want my help against Hargrove. They'll accept you too. Some battle's not worth fighting." Maylin replied pragmatically. "Go, listen, I will watch for trouble." Reluctantly, Blackwood entered alone. About 20 men were already gathered, their faces grim in the yellow light. The meeting was led by a lean, hard-faced man named Carter,
who owned the largest independent ranch still operating in the county.
He laid out the situation bluntly. Hargrove was systematically taking control of every water source in the territory, using the drought as leverage. "We've got 2 choices," Carter concluded. "Sell out now for whatever we can get, or stand together." "And do what?" challenged a voice from the back. "Hargrove has 30 hired guns. We're farmers and shopkeepers. We outnumber him," Carter pointed out. "If we all commit." "To what?" Jenkins asked. "Violence." Carter's expression was grim. "If necessary." When asked for his opinion, Blackwood stood slowly. "I came here looking for allies," he said, his voice carrying in the hushed church. "My place is small, but it has water. Hargrove wants it. He's given me a week to sell before he takes it by force. What will you do? Carter asked. Stand my ground, Blackwood replied simply. With or without help. His words sent a murmur through the gathering. Gradually, men rose to pledge their support. Not all, but perhaps half the gathering. As the meeting broke up, Carter approached Blackwood. You were a bounty hunter once, he said. Handy with a gun. I've heard. Long time ago, Blackwood replied guardedly. We need men who know how to fight. Carter pressed. Men who've killed before, and can do it again if needed. The Chinese community wants to help, Blackwood told him. They've suffered under Hargrove, too. Carter's expression hardened. We don't need their kind of help. They're kind. Blackwood's voice was dangerously soft. You know what I mean, Carter said defensively. They have different ways. They're offering resources, information. Blackwood argued. Things we need. At what price? Carter challenged. No, Blackwood. This is our fight. White men's fight. Blackwood felt a surge of disgust. That's Hargrove's thinking. Dividing people by what they look like, where they come from. It's just how things are, Carter insisted. Doesn't make it right. Blackwood countered. Then we're already beaten. Hargrove wins because he understands something you don't. Power doesn't care about the color of the hands that wield it. He left them standing there, pushing through the church doors into the cold night air. Mei Lin was waiting, huddled against the building for warmth. How did it go? She asked, falling into step beside him. Not well, Blackwood admitted. Some will help, but they're divided, afraid. He hesitated. And some won't work with the Chinese. Mei Lin nodded as if this were expected. Wu offered help. Yes, I'm considering it now. They reached their horses, but before mounting, Blackwood turned to Mei Lin. This isn't your fight, he said quietly. You could go to San Francisco with Wu. He'd help you start over. In the moonlight, her face was solemn. My choice to stay, she said firmly. This my home now too. Home. The word resonated strangely in Blackwood's chest. For 15 years the ranch had been merely the place he lived. A shelter, nothing more. When had it become a home? When she arrived, a voice whispered in his mind. They rode back to the laundry, where Wu was waiting. An alliance was formed. Wu's people, the ranchers who were willing, the merchants who'd been squeezed by Hargrove. By the 6th day, their preparations were as complete as they could make them. The ranch was buttressed with defensive positions. The cattle moved to a hidden valley in the hills, supplies cached in various locations, should they need to abandon the cabin. That evening, Blackwood sat on the porch cleaning his rifle, watching the sunset. Mei Lin joined him, bringing coffee. It's beautiful, she said, gesturing toward the horizon, like fire in the sky. Might be real fire tomorrow, Blackwood replied grimly. Hargrove's deadline is up. Mei Lin nodded, accepting this reality with her usual stoicism. We ready, she said simply. Blackwood set aside his rifle and turned to face her. Mei Lin, he began. This past half year with you here, it's been the first time this place has felt like a home. Mei Lin's expression softened. Thomas, she said gently. I know. There's something else, he continued, reaching into his pocket. I had Jenkins draw this up last time I was in town. He handed her a folded document. She opened it, scanning the unfamiliar legal language with a frown. What is this? Deed to the ranch, Blackwood explained. I've transferred ownership to you, legal and binding. Mei Lin stared at him in shock. But why? Because it should be yours, he said simply. You've made it a home, put down roots, planted for seasons you haven't seen yet. But you love this land, she protested. I do, he acknowledged, but I've done nothing to deserve it. Just claimed it, like so many white men claiming things that weren't theirs to take. He gestured toward the hills, the creek, the cabin. The land deserves better than that. Deserves someone who sees its worth beyond what can be taken from it. Tears welled in Mei Lin's eyes, the first he'd ever seen from her. We share it, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Together. Blackwood shook his head gently. It's yours now. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember that. Later that night, as Blackwood prepared his bedroll before the fire, Mei Lin emerged from the bedroom. She had changed into her finest clothes, the blue dress she had sewn from fabric Blackwood had brought from town. "Thomas," she said softly. "Come." He followed her into the bedroom. Uncertain of her intention, she gestured toward the bed. "You sleep here tonight," she said, "not on floor." "Mei Lin," he began, but she placed a finger against his lips. "Not as man and wife," she clarified. "As family. No one alone tonight." The simplicity of the request moved him deeply. "All right," he agreed. They lay side by side in the narrow bed, a respectful distance between them. Just before sleep claimed him, Blackwood felt Mei Lin's hand find her fingers intertwining with his own. Dawn broke cold and clear. They rose in silence, preparing for the day with practiced efficiency. By sunrise, they were ready. The first riders appeared mid-morning, a dozen men, Hargrove at their center. They approached slowly, spreading out in a wide arc. As they neared the ranch, Blackwood and Mei Lin waited on the porch, rifles ready but not raised. Behind the cabin, Wu and Zhang's men were positioned. In the hills, Carter and the allied ranchers watched, ready to close the trap. Hargrove reined in 50 yards from the cabin. "Time's up, Blackwood," he called. "Made your decision?" "I have," Blackwood replied evenly. "The ranch isn't for sale." Hargrove's face darkened. "Don't be a fool, old man. Look around you. You're outnumbered, outgunned." "Am I?" Blackwood asked mildly. He raised his hand, signaling to the hills. On cue, Carter and his men revealed themselves, rifles glinting in the morning sun. At the same moment, Wu's workers emerged from behind the cabin. Hargrove's confident expression faltered as he realized the trap. "This doesn't change anything, Blackwood. I still have more men, more resources." "Maybe," Blackwood acknowledged. "But how many are you willing to lose today? How many of your men ready to die for your greed?" A murmur ran through Hargrove's riders. Blackwood noted their uncertainty, their shifting gazes. "There's another way," Blackwood continued. "This territory has water enough for all, if it's shared fairly. The drought won't last forever." "Listen to yourself," Hargrove sneered. "Talking about sharing, fairness. Since when does a bounty hunter care about such things?" "Since I learned what matters," Blackwood replied simply. He gestured toward Mei Lin. "The ranch, the land around them. This matters. People matter. Your empire doesn't." Hargrove's face contorted with rage. "Enough talk," he snarled, drawing his pistol. "Boys, burn them out." But his men hesitated, looking at the rifles aimed at them from the hills. Wu's workers, Blackwood and Mei Lin, standing resolute. "Mr. Hargrove," one of the riders said cautiously, "seems we're outnumbered here." "Cowards," Hargrove spat. "I'll do it myself." He raised his pistol, aiming at Blackwood. The shot echoed across the prairie. Hargrove looked surprised, then confused, as a crimson stain spread across his chest. His pistol fell from nerveless fingers as he toppled from his horse. Mei Lin stood with her rifle still raised, a thin wisp of smoke curling from the barrel. Her expression was solemn but resolute. The remaining riders stared in shock at their fallen employer, then at the small Chinese woman who had bested him. One by one they raised their hands in surrender. "Go back to town," Blackwood told them. "Tell Sheriff Mills what happened here. Tell him Hargrove drew first, threatened peaceful folks on their own land." The men nodded, eager to distance themselves from the situation. Two dismounted to retrieve Hargrove's body, lashing it across his horse before retreating hastily. As they disappeared over the horizon, Carter and the other ranchers descended from the hills. Wu and his workers emerged fully from their positions. For a moment, the unlikely allies regarded each other with cautious respect. "Never thought I'd see the day," Carter admitted, nodding toward the Chinese men, fighting alongside. "Well, you know, fellow human beings," Blackwood suggested dryly. Carter had the grace to look embarrassed. "Something like that." The celebration that followed was subdued, but heartfelt. Zhang produced a bottle of rice wine. One of the ranchers contributed whiskey. They sat around a fire as the sun set, sharing the relief of survival, the tentative hope for a different future. Later, as the others departed for their own homes, Blackwood and Mei Lin stood on the porch, watching the stars emerge. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Blackwood felt a strange lightness in his chest, as if a burden he'd carried for decades had finally been set down. Now he said slowly, "You build something here, something worthy of the land." She looked at him sharply. "We build," she corrected. Blackwood shook his head gently. "No, Mei Lin, you build. The ranch is yours now. Remember, legal and binding." "But I've done my part," he interrupted softly. "Time for something new." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "You leaving," she said. Not a question. "For a while," he confirmed. "Hard's there's things I need to set right. People I wronged in my bounty hunting days. Apologies long overdue." Tears shimmered in Mei Lin's eyes, but she nodded. "When?" "Tomorrow," he said, "at first light." She absorbed this with remarkable composure. "You come back." "If you'll have me," he replied, "not as owner or boss, just as friend." "Family," she corrected firmly. "Always welcome, always home here." The word settled over him like a blessing. Home. Not a place, but a connection, a belonging. "Yes," he agreed softly. "Home." The following spring, a traveler passing through Bitter Creek might have noticed several changes. The drought had broken over the winter, bringing new life to the prairie. The territorial governor had sent investigators who uncovered Hargrove's corrupt dealings. Sheriff Mills had been replaced. New water-sharing agreements established between ranchers, and 6 miles out of town, on a modest ranch beside a now-flowing creek, the traveler might have seen an unusual sight. A Chinese woman directing a mixed crew of workers, white, Mexican, Chinese, as they constructed an irrigation system. Nearby, vegetables grew in neat rows, cattle grazed on greening pastures, and children from several communities played together in the yard of a schoolhouse built beside the original cabin. If the traveler inquired about the owner of this thriving enterprise, townsfolk would explain proudly that Miss Mei Lin had transformed Blackwood Ranch into something remarkable, a communal farm where families displaced by Hargrove's schemes could rebuild their lives, where Chinese workers could find fair employment away from the prejudices of larger settlements. And if the traveler asked about Thomas Blackwood himself, they might learn that the old bounty hunter returned occasionally, staying for weeks or months before riding out again on his continuing quest for redemption, that he brought books for the school, seeds for the garden, stories from distant territories, that when he was there, he could often be found on the porch at sunset, sitting beside Mei Lin in companionable silence, as they watched the prairie turn gold in the fading light. Two souls who had found, in each other's company, the quiet peace that had eluded them both for so long, not bound by convention or expectation, but by something deeper, a recognition of kindred spirits who had each, in their own way, come home at last.